And now I weighed a whopping 95 pounds. It's true, yeah. My right leg weighs that now. And I was just under 5 feet tall. My little boy frame was inserted into this big boy world, and you guys know that as a freshman in high school, it is an intimidating atmosphere. Very intimidating. Add to that, my family had just come through just incredible crisis, and relationships crashed, and everything was just ugly. So my self-esteem was pretty much in the dumper. And you know, at 14 years old, you don't have much self-esteem anyway, because nothing actually works anymore. And so my first day in high school, one of the first introductions into the atmosphere was PE. They still do PE? They don't play video games at PE, do they? Just checking. And so our first day in PE, right off the bat in high school, 95 pounds, just under 5 feet tall, and the first place they take us is the weight room. If things aren't already intimidating enough, if my self-esteem is not already in the dumper as far as possible, the coach gathers a whole group of boys around and says, okay, show us what you can lift. Anybody know the drill? And of course, that public display of weakness kind of spoke about how the next few months would go. Anybody know how this works out? So those like me, those weak underclassmen, we got to experience the bottom of a school trash can on a regular basis. Anybody understand? I'm just thankful it wasn't a swirly. You know, and so I hadn't changed much. Things weren't really good, and so I was just really kind of struggling with this whole issue. And so thinking about this whole process and dealing with stuff is in high school, I didn't see myself as anything but a weakling. But if I was going to change who I was, I had to change how I saw myself. So here's where I'm going for this entire series. I think sometimes relationally and spiritually, maybe even emotionally, we see ourselves as a weakling. We see ourselves that we can't pull it off, and it's not possible. But here's what I want you to see. You might see yourself as a weakling, but God thinks you're mighty. Jesus, oh, that's heavy. And so here's the deal. What I had to do is the weights that once intimidated me and challenged me and hurt me, I had to turn that situation around so I could get the best out of that, so I could overcome that area of my life. So here's where I'm going with this whole idea, guys. And for our life, the higher perspective, God knows that there's a champion in you, and maybe you just don't see it yourself. And so God takes these small things in our life and turns them into these great and mighty things. Now, we gave you a penny today because the penny is basically the least of these, right? It's as small as you can get. Now I don't know about you guys, but how many of you guys walk over a penny? You guys stop and pick up a penny? Really? I'm impressed. Now me, I have a hard time. Matter of fact, I reached a brand new low 2 weeks ago. I was really tired. I was hurting. You know, my body just not what it used to be. And I actually walked over a nickel. A new low. But I just thought at just that particular moment, I'm not going to work that cheap. But see, the penny is as small as it gets. It's the least of these. But here's what I want you to get. When you take enough of those and you compound and you add it up, it becomes something great. So here's the deal. Maybe you don't see those moments in your life as a really big deal, and you think, well, this doesn't really matter. But see, God sees something completely different in you. Now, in the book of Judges chapter 6, there's a guy whose name is Gideon. And Gideon sees himself as the weakling. He sees himself spiritually and relationally weak. He feels like he can't get above anything. As a matter of fact, it is so bad, he's hiding in a hole. Anybody ever try to hide? Am I talking your language? Okay? And now what got him to this place was he had experienced defeat after defeat after defeat. And what happens is when our self-esteem or when our victory is just pounded on so many times, we feel like we just can't take it anymore. So what we do, like Gideon, we go and hide. So God finds this guy in his hiding place. And he calls him out. But he doesn't say, hey, you need to suck it up, big boy, this kind of stuff. That's not what he does. God speaks to the potential in him. And see, he saw himself as a weakling. God says, Gideon, mighty warrior. God is going to use you to do incredible things. Now, because of Gideon's perspective, Gideon's response is, that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, have you ever looked at life and like, for instance, maybe you're in church and I'm telling you this stuff and you think, well, Pastor Dave, you lost your mind, dude. It's just not going to happen. You don't understand what has happened to me. You don't understand where I'm coming from. You just don't understand what I've been through. So Gideon's response, I think, is pretty good. He said, how can I save Israel when my clan or my family is the weakest? How is it possible for me to pull my relationships back together? How is it possible for me spiritually to get myself above the snake line? How is it possible for me to get beyond this? Because everybody around me, I mean, we just don't have it. We just can't do it. We can't pull this off. And not only that, not only is my family the weakest, he said, I am the least in my entire family. I'm the smallest guy. I am the weakling. I'm the 95-pound, not quite 5-foot guy looking at the bottom of the trash can. How is it possible that I can do anything significant? See, here's the deal. God is calling out greatness in you, and you just need to see it from God's perspective, right? Okay, so because there's a lot of power in that penny, right? Now, oftentimes when difficult situations come our direction through fear or problems or failure or whatever it might be, our conclusion is we need more. When we're suffering financial problems, our solution is, you know what, if I only had more money, right? Or when the schedule is just crazy and you don't have time to do anything. And you know, moms even understand this. Sometimes just going to the bathroom is just a break. You get it. You just lean your head up against the wall. It's like, ah. We said, if I just had more time. Or we're just going through some hard stuff and it's just taxing you and just wearing you down. If I just had a little bit more strength. Our solution is often we need more. And see, those are the things that drive us to God. And then we call on God. God, look, I need more money. Or God, I need more time. Or God, I need more strength. But sometimes God doesn't answer in the way that we think he should answer. And that disappointment leads us to believe, well, God doesn't care, or God isn't listening, or it really doesn't matter, or maybe I'm too insignificant. And we give up, or we get angry with God. Okay, so let's just say that you're right. What if God gave you an extra $10,000? Hey, What if God gave you one more hour every day and the day was 25 hours long instead of 24? Some of us already figured out, God, no. What if God gave you the strength to do one more thing? The $10,000 would soon be gone. You would fill that hour up with something, and that strength would be used on something else. So the answer isn't more. So here's what I want you to get. This is a higher perspective, okay? Before we can possess higher blessings, we need to be able to embrace higher principles. See, so what I want to do is I want to challenge your thinking, how you see yourself, rather than seeing yourself as not enough or too weak or too broke or too wore down or too young or too old or too thin or too not thin. Yeah, I'm kind of avoiding those spots. And so what happens is we don't see ourselves the way that God sees us, and so it just makes things really difficult. And people often ask me, well, what does God think of this, or how does God respond to this? What's the kingdom of God like? And I think sometimes we just don't understand that God gives us these resources called time and family and relationships and people and opportunities. And God wants us to be able to use those resources to help make our world a better place. Not just the world around us, but our world, the world that we live in. Make our relationships better, our marriages better, our families better. God gives us those resources. And so the answer isn't that you need more. The answer is, what are you doing with what you got? So God's perspective isn't in solving our problems. God's perspective is us knowing the purpose of our life. Why are we here? What's the point? Now, let me just kind of throw this at you. Oftentimes our prayers are prayers to help us solve the day's problems. What you don't understand is the enemy of your soul gives you problems to distract you from the purpose. You get that? Problems are those little side dirt roads that we end up going down. You ever taken a road trip with somebody and they couldn't stand the road? No, I mean not drunk, not stand the road. I'm talking different stuff. But you know, they say, oh, and so every little sign they want to stop. Like, God, just get on with it. You know? And so what happens is the problems in life, we're asking God to solve those problems, but God is not trying to solve our problems. God's trying to get us to be moved towards purpose. Those problems are what keeps us from moving forward, right? Now, so he wants us to be able to look at the resources and the life we've been given, not in the problems of the day, but in the purpose of our life. Let me just put it this way. When you know why you're here, you know what God has for you, you can plow right through the problems. Because you know that's not why you're here. That's not what you're designed for. It allows you to push through things. And that's the whole idea. So in Matthew chapter 25, there's a story of there's this wealthy guy. And he brings in three of the guys that work for him. And it's okay, I'm going to give you this opportunity. So to one guy, he gave him 5 bags of silver. To another guy, he gave 2 bags of silver. And to the last guy, he gave him 1 bag of silver. And the scripture says, according to their ability. Or to put it this way, God has given you the resources that he knows you can handle. So all you got to do with this is just say, okay, God's got this, right? You can do this. And so after a while, he came back and he wanted to know, okay, how are you guys doing? So he came to the guy who had given 5 bags of silver to him. He said, how'd you do? He goes, you know what? You gave me 5 bags, and what I did is I used those, and I utilized the opportunity, and guess what? Now I've got 10 bags. And here's what he said. He said, because you did so well with what I gave you, now I'm going to give you more. Everybody say more. Because you did so well with what I gave you, I'm going to give you more. He went to the guy with the 2, and he goes, how'd you do? He goes, awesome, man. Doubled it. Here's 4. Good job. Because you did so well with what I gave you, I'm going to give you more. Then he went to the guy with the 1. How'd you do? You know, I was kind of nervous, and I didn't know how it's going to work out, and I didn't want you to be mad at me, didn't want to blow it, didn't want to mess this thing up, so I just didn't think I could do it, so I hid it in the ground. So here's what you gave me. And here's the response. This is what the kingdom of God is like. It's because you didn't do anything with what I gave you. Here's what it says, Matthew chapter 25, verse 28. He ordered, take the money from this servant and give it to the one who has 10 bags of silver. What? Really? Well, why? Keep reading. To those who use well what they're given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing with what little they have, it'll be taken away. See, it's kind of a tough story. You're thinking, how unfair is that? That's just not right. I mean, the guy don't have much as it is, and it's like, really? But see, here's what we know, guys. This is how it works. If you don't take care of what you have, it will go away. If you don't take care of your car, you'll be walking, right? I got to tell this story. Jessica's going to hate this, but here it is. She had this car, and it wasn't a good car, but it ran, it did okay. And so she shows up one day, she goes, "Hey, Dad, my car's making a funny noise." Now, sometimes what people think is funny it's not funny. She said, "Well," I said, "Well, what do you mean a funny noise?" She goes, "Well, it's loud, not good." So I'm hoping it's something not so drastic, you know. And so I go out and say, "Okay, well, start it up," and it's like, bam, bam, bam. Oh, shut it off, shut it off, shut it off. She goes, "You think it's bad?" It's bad. It's really bad. And so the first question I ask, "Yeah, is there oil in it?" She goes, "Yeah." So I pull the dipstick. It's dusty. And she says, "That's the dipstick?" Just for clarification, transmission was fine. But see, here's the deal. If we don't take care of what we've been given, it will go away. If you don't take care of your marriage will go away. If you don't take care of raising your children will go crazy. If you don't take care of the life that you've been, see, that's what he's trying to say. So this guy, it wasn't taken away from him because he didn't have very much. It was taken away from him because he didn't do anything with it. See, here's the deal. Is we think it's supposed to be fair. We think God is supposed to be fair, but it doesn't work that way. The kingdom of heaven isn't built on fair. It's built on right. God doesn't do what is fair. God does what is right. You say, well, I don't know. I don't know if I believe that. That's not okay. The Bible calls it righteousness or rightness. It's for things to be right. And people say, well, I just don't know if I believe. And that's so let's just say that you're right. So if you're right and it's supposed to be fair, here's the deal. So let's say that you go on a diet. Let's just say. And you're eating lettuce and you're exercising hard and you lose 10 pounds. Way to go. And me, I'm eating junk food. I'm laying on a couch all day. I'm watching Duck Dynasty and you're just kind of hanging out. And so I think what's fair is I think I ought to lose 5 pounds and you ought to lose 5 pounds because that's fair. Yeah, right? You're thinking, you've lost your mind. That's not going to work that way because you didn't do anything. Of course you're not going to lose 5 pounds. See, the kingdom of heaven is about what's right, not what's fair. So what are you doing with what you've been given, right? So here's the deal. If we expect, or if we're thinking, well, we need more money, the question is, what are you doing with the money you have? Are you honoring God? Are you putting some back? Because, stuff happens. Are you trying to get out of debt? See, what are you doing with what you have? You think, well, man, I just need more time. What are you doing with the time you have? Are you storing up some good during that time? Are you taking care of your priorities at that time? Are you spending time with the people you're supposed to be spending time? What are you doing with your time? Or are you just wasting a lot of time? So, well, man, if I had just had a little bit more strength, okay, what are you doing with the strength and energy that you have? Are you storing up and get ready for those times you're going to need a little bit more strength? Or are you wasting your strength on dumb stuff? You see, that's really what it's all about. So when we're talking about the higher perspective, here's what I want you to get. This is the most important part. What are you doing with the life that you've been given? See, God looks at you and say, look, maybe you were only given a little bit. But if you take care of that and you work with that and you honor that little bit becomes a lot. What kind of life do you want? You have to see yourself a little bit differently. See, sometimes we kind of excuse ourselves saying, I don't have the right opportunity. I don't have the right job. It's like this recent conversation. It's like, California raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We're all going to live better. Your McDonald's dollar menu is going to be the $5 menu. See, here's the deal. And I'm not making a political statement. But just because you get more doesn't make you a better person. What are you doing with what you've been given? What are you doing with the relationships you have? So oftentimes I deal with people all the time. They say, you know what? This relationship isn't working out, so I just need to find another one. No, what are you doing with the one you got? That's the deal. What are you doing with the opportunity that you have? Are you really utilizing those opportunities the best you possibly can? Let me finish with this. In Luke chapter 2, there's a woman Ruth chapter 2. There's a woman by the name of Ruth. And she is hit hard times. There is no welfare system. There's no public assistance. There's nothing there to help her out. The only option you had in that culture was you either begged or you died. So the beggars at this particular time were following around the reapers as they reaped the harvest. And whatever the harvesters happened to drop on the ground or whatever they missed, that's when the beggars would just pick up these little tiny leftovers. They were living on a beggar's portion. They were living on weak. They were living on minimum. And so Ruth is following around these harvesters. And the owner of the field, whose name is Boaz, he took notice of her. And what he noticed about her, now listen, this is the important part. He noticed that she didn't have much, but she was faithful with what she had. She hit hard times and she didn't run away. She didn't quit. She didn't bail out. She didn't whine or complain. She just did what she had to do. And he noticed her. And he talked to the young men that were harvesting. He said, see that girl? I want you to give her a special place. I want you to let her get closer. And when you look and you catch her in the corner of your eye, I want you to let some bundles fall on purpose for her. And see, she didn't know what was going on. She didn't know that he'd had that conversation. But when she got back home to her mother-in-law, Naomi, she showed her what she had gotten by begging. And Naomi noticed. Here's what Naomi noticed. That's not a beggar's portion. You see, most of them come back with this. You came back with this. Here's what Naomi noticed. Somebody is showing you favor. Listen, guys, here's what I want you to get. Sometimes we miss the stuff that God is doing in our life. There's people in this room, the doctors have tried to scare you, but the report came back okay because God is showing you favor. Some of you should have lost your job, but you kept your job. Why? Because God is showing you favor. Some of you, the economy has turned around and you should be homeless, but you have a home. Some of you, your marriage has gone through hard times, but you're still together. Why? Because you're favored by the Lord. You understand what I'm saying? Some of you, your addiction should have taken you out, but here you are in the house of God, worshiping and honoring God. Why? Because God has shown you favor. See, the enemy of your soul wants you to think this is as good as it's going to get. This is all there is. You're going to stop here. Here's where you're born, and here's where you die, and that's all there is. And God says, you know what? That's not my plan. My plan is not for the least of these. My plan is to make you a mighty warrior. My plan is to make you strong and powerful, not the loser, not the end of the road. God, my plan is to make you something better. This girl that was begging in this field didn't even know where her next meal was going to come from. Ended up marrying the owner of the field. And she went from begging in the field to owning the field. My friend, that is God's favor on your life. Why? Because you're faithful, because you don't quit, because you don't give up, because you don't accept what is just because that's what is. I am a blood-bought, born-again, Bible-believing child of the Most High God. I am a son of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. I didn't come to be a beggar. I came to be a son. And he has this inheritance for me and you. Why in the world would I live on a beggar's portion? My friend, this is your time. So maybe your relationship is going through a rocky time. Maybe financially you're just struggling to keep your head above water. Maybe the boss has threatened to fire you. Or your business isn't doing so well. Maybe personally you feel like giving up. My friend, you're not a beggar. Don't be a beggar. Don't live on the minimum, because God thinks you're mighty. There's a warrior in you. In my freshman year, it's hard to look cool when you're 95 pounds. I'm telling you, it's hard. I didn't even have a chest. But I remember one day I was, when they let all the kids out and they're kind of caged up in this place. And all I was doing that day was just trying to stay as far away from the trash cans as possible. Because if I walked by one, I was in it. And it wasn't even such thing as recycle back then, Couldn't even come out with a bottle. And as I was standing there, a girl started talking to me. So I was a guy, so it worked out. And I was 95 pounds, trying to look cool talking to a girl. Oh, by the way, I know I've had a few people ask, what happened to my nose, and Loretta is not the woman that she appears to be. That's not true, because if anything happens, I'll be in the obituary, not with a. So this girl's talking to me, and I'm thinking, hey. Then I just felt this shadow behind me. That ever happened to you guys? And the shadow just completely covered me. And this guy socked me in the back of the head. I mean, not a, hey, buddy, on the ground, oh my gosh, what just happened kind of sock. And I turned around, and it was a gigantic guy. He had to be like 14 or 15 feet, when you're not even 5 foot tall, it was just this. So I was in a total panic, and I just wrapped myself up in a ball while he pummeled me. Didn't fight back at all. Because this is all I could do. One of the most humiliating experiences of my life. So I had to let what intimidated me challenge me. It changed everything. So here's where we're at today. I wonder if for you there's a weakness that has been pummeling you. If there's something in your life that has just been beating you up and down the street. I wonder if there's a frustration in a relationship where you feel like giving up and throwing in the towel. I wonder if there's something in your personal life you feel like, that this is never going to work. It's not going to get any better. I wonder maybe if, like financially, you think that you're never going to get back on track. My friend, here's what I'm telling you today. There is a mighty warrior in you. Could I get you to bow your heads and close your eyes for just a moment, please? I wonder today if for some reason, maybe it's the doctor, maybe it's your family, maybe it's a marriage, maybe it's a relationship where you're actually scared. Because what you see in front of you is disaster and destruction or failure. And it's like Gideon. You feel like you're just hiding and hoping it'll go away. If that's you, while every head is bowed, everybody's eyes are closed, if that describes you today and you feel like I'm talking to you, could you just raise your hand up or just real quick and right back down? Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you. My friend, do not let your weakness intimidate you. Don't let the frustration intimidate you. Don't let the struggles in relationship make you give up on what God is going to do in your life. If you haven't yet raised your hand, you know that God is talking to you. Just raise your hand real fast. Say, that's me, Pastor Dave. That's me. Thank you. I think there's some people here today that you have a doctor's appointment that's in front of you and you're terrified. If that's you, just show me your hand, just real fast. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Is it a weakness? Something that's in front of you? Something you've been avoiding? Just show me your hand, just real fast. Say, that's me, Pastor. Thank you. Thank you. Could y'all stand this morning, please? I want you to pray a simple prayer with me out loud. You ready? Because these words need to come out of your mouth. It's okay if I say it, but I want you to say it. You guys ready? Say, I am not weak. I am strong. I'm not a victim. I'm a victor. I'm a mighty warrior. I'm a son or daughter of God. I belong to Him. I'm not weak. I'm victorious. In Jesus' name. My friend, that's your prayer. You are the mighty warrior. Fight for your family. Fight for your children. Fight for your marriage. Fight for your financial stability. Fight for your future, my friend, because if you don't fight for it, nobody else will. God has given you this great opportunity. You say, well, He hasn't given me much. If He's given you one bag, that's plenty, because God is able to do so much more. What are you doing with the life that He's given you? Just watch and see what God will do. Ruth, who was begging in the field, ended up owning the field. I could take that kind of a blessing. How about you? Okay, our prayer partners are up here to pray with you. Now I know that we prayed that simple prayer, and I know that you've embraced that. But see, sometimes you just need somebody just to partner with you in faith, right? But if you get anything, hang on to that penny. Realize you put enough of those together, you're rich. Right? Watch what God will do.